since you became a NITA ambassador? Like how many years ago?
It's like almost 3 decades, Cindy. Almost 3 decades. Oh my goodness.
That's incredible. Oh my God.
That's so
So, well, it took us a while to meet, but here we are.
I believe in perfect timing. So, I'm so excited to hear more about EDGI and the work you're doing with genetics.
Yeah, we will dive into it, I promise.
Yeah.
But this is more about you. So we're gonna
Okay.
we're gonna be like all Emmy first, and then we can dive a little bit
Sure. Sure.
into Eddie.
Yes, that's fine.
All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start out, and I'm actually gonna read your introduction because I don't want to let anything else because you've done so much.
Oh,
Okay.
well, okay.
Okay. So here we go.
Here we
So
go.
it is. I'm Dr. Cindy Bulik, and I am the principal investigator of EDGI. Welcome to EDGI Talk today. It is my absolute joy to welcome Emmy to the show. Emmy is, in my mind, from my perspective, the person who wrote the book on the fact that you can be beautiful no matter what size or shape you are. And she is an iconic American supermodel. She is an innovator in the fashion, wellness, and beauty industries. And she is also an author. We're going to talk about some of her books. She's also, and this is my favorite part of your bio, she is a social reformer for women's empowerment and positive body image. Welcome, Emmy.
Thank you so much, Cindy. I'm really, really happy to be here.
So let's start.
Yeah.
Let's start with going back. I think you just said 3 decades. Tell us.
Did I?
Yeah, you did. You said 3 decades. So let's sort of rewind back 3 decades and talk about when you first got involved with the eating disorders field and became an ambassador with NITA.
So I was traveling around the world. People magazine in '94 for 50 of the most beautiful people had already happened in my life. And I opened up an aperture or opened up a communications vehicle about my journey with my body. And I was really nervous to talk publicly about what had been going on in my own home as a child and how I had to break free from that. And after that article hit, I was around the world and I was working, and I kept on saying, my goodness, why am I beating myself up that I'm not doing enough? And that there was some value stuff that was all wrapped up in my body image, and women were talking to me and stopping me and saying, what you're talking about, this is what happened to me. And they would then get into it. Or if I talked to a large group afterwards, I would have emails and emails. I was getting like 850,000 hits per month on my website because we all feel things. We just didn't speak about body diversity. We just didn't. And the more I kept my ear open, and that was back in the '90s, the more I realized that we were more the same, and we were all going through this collective strangeness of this very small aperture that all of us had to fit through, including men and boys. So that's when it all kind of started. And I'm, rewind just a little bit. I was a reporter. I went to Syracuse University at the Newhouse School of Visual and Performing Arts and Speech Communication. I was curious from the get-go. So walking into the full-figured industry, my mind was was developed as a curious reporter. I was a journalist.
Right.
And what became extremely curious that things were not adding up. And if you dug a little bit beyond the surface, interesting things started to pop up. And that's where I had to turn to what is now called NITA. Many generations ago, 30 years ago, Cindy, it was called something else, but I needed help personally because what other people were talking about kind of was triggering a little bit for me. And then I was being vulnerable and there wasn't a lot of support. Some therapists would look at me and say, you look perfectly normal and great. And neither did I have anorexia, neither did I have bulimia, but I had something going on that wasn't normal for me, So I kept on looking and looking. So that's the beginning of my journey, and whatever I was learning, it couldn't stop me. I had to talk about it. So
Right, right. And you have that background of being a reporter and journalism and language.
right.
And you actually just used some language right there that I wanted to just sort of focus in on. You talked about the full-figured industry.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring it up is because I think so many people, even in the healthcare field, they don't know what words to use to talk about body diversity. And I think sometimes it even keeps people from talking. I just have this story. I had a colleague from another country. I think it was from Holland, but I'm not sure. And we went shopping at a mall in the United States, classic American experience, right? And she walks into the store and she sees these labels that are, I think it was petite, missy, and woman. And she had this
Or
look on
plus
her face. It wasn't even plus, it just said
woman.
woman. And she was like, yes, it's like I'm all of these. And how do we talk about this without offending people? What language do we use?
It's interesting because the language does get us all caught up, and
Yeah.
it causes friction, it causes tension. Um, I don't know if we need to speak about women through the portal of size. But in research, we do have to, and so let me explain.
Yeah.
The word plus and full figured came from the modeling bookers. They had all these women, and some of the clients would say, "I'd like a Rebecca," and they'd say straight size Rebecca or full or plus size Rebecca. So, and on the cutting room floor, there were all these different patterns in factories, and they would say, "This is the plus, so take out size 14 to 24 on the cutting room floor," as just to define it, that there are two different twos and two, well, not really. There's two different 16s and there's two different 14s. We're talking about the plus 14. We're talking about the 16. So that there's a very technical aspect that, because of the language lacking thereof within the cultural zeitgeist on how to talk about this new kind of beauty, or divisions within department stores, everybody gets very confused. And all you need to do is just put the sizes there on the tag. You don't have to categorize it, and just kind of maybe name a division, teens,
Right.
juniors, women, and within women you'd have 0 to 24, if not higher. So yeah, it's gotten us into trouble, this language barrier, even though we're speaking English. it's really, it's interesting. And I keep on talking about just the word fat.
Right.
Let's keep it a noun, everyone. Let's figure out and pull back the onion on the adjective that it represents. Let's get all in there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a lot there, but I actually had no idea that there was sort of like an industry background that it meant something technical.
It came from that.
Yeah.
Yes, and but it's up to the individuals. It's up to the performers, the entertainers, and the models themselves, the talent. That if there's a title underneath your name, they could just say model. Obviously, I am not a size 0. And nor should we need to pull that out. But if you'd like to talk about the topics of body image and self-esteem and inclusivity, then that's fabulous. But let's try and keep the defining factor. And if you must call attention, then it depends on how we react to these bits of language. Like where are we at, and why do we get so inflamed over the word fat, or why do we get so inflamed over the word plus? And I'm grappling with that all the time. I just like eliminating the initial judgment, the door opener of like, hi, you're a plus size person, or hi, because I'm like, really, you're not gonna, that's the first thing you're gonna think about.
Right.
And it's quite debilitating for general public people, that when they walk through a clothing store, that they have to, if they're full figure or if they're above a size 12, that they have to go gravitating to the plus department. It just means, it means that they're bastions of society in some places, and some women think that it's a celebration of womanhood, and it's just this big cocktail of misunderstood language.
Right. Exactly. No, I totally agree. You know, and I can see that, you know, I can see some people sort of like proudly going into that section and other people just feeling horrified because there's just so much stuff
Confusion.
that gets,
Yeah.
yeah, that gets added to it when it should, like you said, just be matter of fact, number, a range. It's how we are. Um, and that also rolls into, I've been doing a lot of writing just this last week about these things that I call Velcro comments.
Yes, I
Um,
like that. I saw that in your comments, and I really
yeah. Do
like
you, I'll explain
the
to like,
image of it. Yes, go ahead, please. I
it's, I
love it.
mean, we all know what Velcro is. And if you look at it really closely, I had never looked closely at Velcro. It has like a million little hooks. And then they hook into all these loops. So they're designed to get under your skin, right? And in my mind, Velcro comments are these things that people say to you. Sometimes it's offhand. It might not necessarily be malicious, but boy, it hurts. And boy, it sticks with you like forever. And you seem to have resonated with the concept. Have you been on the receiving end of Velcro comments like that in your life that have stuck with you?
Oh, yes. I almost walked away from the entire modeling industry early on in my work. And I keep, because of a photographer calling me fat after I had hair and makeup done. And it was my very, very first big full day advertising job. And very few women were on billboards or doing any ads, especially a national ad. And my agency was so excited. I brought rugelach, a little puff pastry, kind of not puff pastry, but it's pastry to the
Yeah.
set. And I thought, how funny, here I am, the plus size
Plus
model.
size.
Yeah, and this was before the People magazine thing. And I sat down in the makeup chair, and the photographer was clearly not on this earth. Let's just put it that way. I think he was up all night having a binge of some sort. And when he came in, he goes, okay, where's the model? And it was absolutely certain and absolutely clear that there was only one woman in the entire studio that had curlers in her hair and was sitting in the director's chair. And when he said that, I keep on saying, why didn't I just tell him to get down and do 20 push-ups with me? Because I'm an athlete,
Right.
And it was like, I had a whole life before this modeling, and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? Like, why? And I hadn't yet hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And I told my agency, I'm leaving this building right now. And they said, no, you've got to stay because he has to shoot you. It's an advertising job. And I think at that time, film, this is what they used to work only on film, and it had to go away to processing
Right.
departments.
Yeah.
And everyone in the processing department had certain ins with the magazines. So if a photographer was shooting whomever it was, Kate Moss or Cindy Crawford or whatever, a little ring-a-ling-a-lingy was going to go to, oh, guess who so-and-so is working with. So,
Right.
and it, God forbid, if anybody had any film coming in that had a full figure girl, it was like, oh God, I can't believe that he did that. And if that was the way it was the way it was back then. And when he came back, it was, it was crazy. So 2 to 3 years later, I'm down in Miami, and I got back into the industry, and I had now by this time I did People magazine, and I really understood then when it all happened that I was supposed to be a reporter beforehand. I was supposed to be really comfortable in front of the camera, and I was actually it was so important for me to listen to what so many, 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 many people had to say, not only in our country but around the world. And then I saw him again. And it wasn't until I saw him again, and I actually had to hand a phone over to him. He looked completely cleaned up, and he had obviously seen me in a bunch of stuff. He said, Emmy, we have to work together. I would love to shoot you. Now, it's very interesting. After 3 years, there's a whole cultural shift to more of an aperture opening. And I literally left the industry for 9 months to go and get into a holistic career. I really left my book. My bookers were like, wait a minute, your chart is completely full. What are you doing? I said, once I was done with that shoot, I said, no one should ever talk to anyone like this. But what was the saving grace was People magazine, because I wouldn't have come back if it was only for, really, I literally left. I had a whole business ready to go. But when he said to me, we've got to work again, I walked, gave him the phone, and I said, we actually worked together before, and I just want to thank you. Never knew this thought in my mind, but I said to him, I want to thank you for being so instrumental for me to stick in the industry. And when I walked away, I don't even remember walking away. I have goosebumps just telling you this.
Yeah.
And the whole story, and I share this with young kids a lot, is that you never understand where people come from.
Yeah.
You never understand. And bullies come in all different shapes and sizes, colors, ages, it doesn't matter. And if you give up a dream, or you give up a trajectory of where you're going, because of what somebody might say to you, think again, because you might be a teacher, or they might be the student, or you might be the student and they're the teacher. He was definitely my teacher to go, okay, let's see if you're ready.
Right.
For this career that's going to be coming for you, because it has been an incredible journey. And I almost gave up the whole thing because of what someone said.
Wow.
This whole life that I've had, that I am so deeply in such deep gratitude, it makes me feel emotional. But for the grace of God, People magazine came through, so thank God for that.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm not even kidding you.
No.
And good bookers that were like really crafty.
No, that's awesome. I mean, to think about if that hadn't happened and the world had lost you, this amazing voice.
Oh, you're so
that has touched so many. No, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, you have touched so many people with your message. And if that Velcro comment had been the end of it, and People magazine never swooped in and fixed things and gave you the opportunity, there would have been a lot of people who would feel really awful right now still.
Wow. Thank you for saying that. And I think I'm going to just reflect what you're saying to anybody that's listening, and anyone's here, is that we all have these moments in our life. Mm-hmm. We all make this impact. Mine just might be seen by more people, and it might be more public, but we have our own worlds that we live in. Right. Isn't that true? I think that's really the truth about Velcro comments, and about how we react. It's whatever I'm now a life coach, so I'm learning very clearly that it's all in how we react.
Yes. Yeah, because we can't do anything about what comes out of their mouth. Often. Sometimes we can. We might be able to make that change. But the thing, optimistic moment. But we can change our reaction to it. Absolutely. Yeah. So thanks.
Fill ourselves with knowledge.
Right.
Once we fill it, you can't. Once you get the knowledge, you can't go no. I don't know what you're saying. It's your responsibility.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's transition a little bit and go back to the clothing store. And I would love to talk about your fashion line. Because I was looking at your website and I was looking at some of the products, and I'm going to tell a story again. I actually went straight to one of my grandmothers. So I had a very full-figured grandmother, and I remember all she ever wore at home was what my dad would call a house dress. Right. And they were like these, it was a tent, basically, right? And I used to feel so bad because, grandma wouldn't go out of the house because she had her house dress on, and it was really limiting to her. And when I think back about how she was body shamed, she's rolling over. Hopefully she's viewing the work that you're doing and that we're all doing in a positive light.
Oh, she definitely,
she's up there.
Your wings and our wings. Yeah, no. She's working her magic.
Yeah.
My mom too. I lost my mom when I was 15. So I think we have lots of angels working on our behalf. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about all this amazing clothing that would have made my grandmother's life much better. And tell me about your fashion line and your ideas behind that.
So my fashion, I don't have a fashion line right now up and running. I have to knock on wood that during COVID, not having a line right now, I'm so grateful, because it would have been really, really, really tough. I've had a few clothing lines in the past, and I love working with Kelwood and other groups that I worked with. But the program that I think that you might be discuss or bringing up is Fashion Without Limits. Yes. And Fashion Without Limits is a legacy project that after I had cancer, I back in 2007, and I got into remission, and I was just given the full bill of great health, and I'm no longer in remission. I'm healed. I had lymphatic cancer. So, but when I was going through the thick of things, I said, going forward here, I could go continue doing the modeling and spokesperson work for other people and having my own lines. But I said, what is my legacy? What can be a leave behind? When the time is right, and when my time is right to not be here anymore, how can I really leave a lasting impact that's going to really make millions and millions of women feel better in their own skin? And I started wondering why the size issue was still present, where clothing wasn't fitting. We knew that there were 100 million women without clothing options in America, and a lot of companies could go in, and I would consult them, and if they would follow the advice when I was asked, from soup all the way down to factory cutting and the assumptions, there would be some motion forward, but there were too many times that, oh, well, we don't need to do that. We don't need to invest in that. And I said, the whole system needs to be changed. And it was very frustrating to see millions upon millions and millions of dollars not be put in the right direction for the flourishing of the industry. And it is a tricky one, because we have more curves, and there's athletic curvy, there's a junior curvy, and there's a matronly curvy that's very square. I mean, there's very different varieties once you go above a size 14, but it's achievable. So I went to different fashion schools and said, so are you teaching an inclusive fashion education? The top, I talked to quite a few. No, and I came back and I said, well, knowledge is power. That's the only place. You can't go to the department stores and tell them to do it. You can't go to the manufacturers. They're just cranking it out. So where do we teach? How do we get the whole idea of what fashion is and for whom it's made for? Right. It's school. Yeah. So that when the schools were rejecting the idea of developing a inclusive fashion education, I went back to my alma mater. I went to the fashion program at Syracuse, and I went to I was in VPA for speech communication, and also did a lot of work with Newhouse. But when I went to the fashion program, they were like, why haven't we thought of this? I said, we'll do this together. I don't know how to do it, but let's get inclusive fashion. Let's get forms together and let's get it sponsored. It was remarkable what a group of like-minded souls can do without having any knowledge on how to develop a program, that now we have graduates and they teach inclusive fashion from freshman year to senior year. And all of the young designers don't see a difference. They got kind of run to the larger framed, and there's all different varieties of the 14s and the 16s, 18, 20, 24. And they go, I want to design off of this one for this season, because then I'll know how to make clothes for my aunt. I'll make clothes for my sister. I'll make clothes for my grandmother. So their family is being represented by the inclusive culture. So it's been now, we're going into our 7th year, and I'm looking very much to working hopefully also with other colleges about expanding it into other programs. So hats off to Syracuse, though. I do have to say that our professors there were daring, and they didn't lead with their ego. They led with their heart.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I'm going to put a plug in for my people. Yeah. So the older people, when I talk to people women who are my age, none of us. None of us expected our body.
Actually.
Yes.
And it's going to be inclusive. Every single line I'm going to be doing is going to be from 0 to 24 at least.
Yes.
And it's going to be perimenopause.
Yes.
I'm just saying it here. You're officially,
I'm going to put a big exclamation point. I'll draw an exclamation point.
What's your biggest complaint with the clothing that you find?
The biggest complaint that everyone says is our waists relative to our hips are not the same as they used to be. Your waist gets bigger. I mean, it's just, I mean, we know this, doctors know this, but our moms don't tell us this, and our
Yeah,
doctors don't tell us this, and our young male physicians have no clue
I
what go
know.
on with perimenopausal bodies. None.
Oh, yeah. It's so
So,
true, though.
so yeah, if you could do that, man, I will be your cheerleader.
I will talk to you about that. Don't worry.
Okay,
I
good.
actually, it's been on my mind, and I'm looking to work in linens. I'm looking to work in flaxes. I'm working, yeah, yeah.
Nice. I love it.
Merino wool, fine spun merino wool. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. As a former New Zealand resident, anything made out of merino makes me happy.
Oh, oh, I have the best top and bottom base um, set that I wear. I mean, all the time when I go snowshoeing and stuff. And this group named Sloom, my technical designer from a long time on one of my clothing lines,
Yeah.
I suddenly saw her name, and she has this sweet company in Austin. And I took her merino wool top and leggings, washed them like 3 times. I'm telling you, Cindy, I have never felt anything more soft and more
Oh,
cozy during this time in COVID. I'm wearing it all the time.
I'm
I
sure.
never knew merino wool could be that soft,
Oh,
ever.
yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, it can.
I want to go
Yes.
to New Zealand so badly. I
Okay.
cannot
If
wait.
if you do, so I keep a running document because we go back like every year when it's not COVID. So I have an amazing document of where to go in New Zealand. So we'll talk.
Oh,
I
okay.
will send this to you. Best places to go.
I can't.
It's incredible. But back to you.
Okay.
We could go on about New Zealand and wool for a long time. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to catch up on before we finish up is your Chicken Soup for the Soul book, Curvy and Confident.
Yes.
That title just jumped out and grabbed me. So could you want to give us a little rundown on Curvy and Confident?
It's so yummy. It says curvy on the cover, but it's really for all women because we all have curves, but it really does have women that have not really been in the limelight enough, and having stories written about them enough, I guess. But we do have a variety of women in the book that are all sized and all different, um, I guess, gender identification, and we also have a few men that have offered and really wanted to offer their honor of the woman's body. And so there's all these different stories of starting at one point, going through the journey, and then getting to the end where there's a realization. So I worked with the owner of Chicken Soup for the Soul, no longer Jack Canfield, but she and her husband bought the company from him, Amy Newmark, and as well as Natasha Stoynoff, who I work with and who's a dear friend. So we 3 put out the ask to everybody, and women submit their stories to be chosen. So we had, like, Amy said that this was one of the largest returns on an ask.
Wow.
And I was so fascinated. We got reams of paper. So the 3 of us, they divided it in 3. And we were like playing cards on the phone going, wait a minute, I need to have that story in. No, you have to have that story. No, we need to have, there were so many stories. We could have had like 5 books.
Right.
And there's only 101. So imagine thousands and thousands
Wow.
to get to 101. Oh, but it's a great book. It's a great pick-me-up book. And anywhere you open it, you read these stories and you're like, that's me. That's me. That's how I feel. So yeah, I loved that book. I was so happy that they asked. I've known about Chicken Soup for the Soul for a long time, but
Yeah.
it's a great book.
What were the themes that most grabbed you that you said, I want that story in there?
Yes. So I really love where there is a subtlety of awareness that you are not alone.
Mm.
And then having an art class where a woman that did not, didn't quite frankly body shame herself, but she was always told she was so pretty, and if she would X, Y,
Oh,
Z. And having her go and be the model at this art drawing class, and then having the class just look at her. She felt the energy of their adoring stare and their adoration of her, and that it was so nonverbal. And it almost through the words that you would feel that the wings were expanding and the freedom of that she had just arrived. It was, yes, that's our right as women. I don't care what size you are. Oh, it's the best. Oh,
it's one of those goosebumpy sort of tears in the eyes sort of
yeah.
response to that kind of emotional.
Yummy. It's so important.
Yeah.
I want to hear more stories like that.
Yeah.
Instead of being, I pitch stuff constantly. Oh, you're so altruistic. Oh, you're so goody two shoes. I'm like, we need more of that.
Especially now. Good heavens, especially now. Yeah. Huh. Oh, I can't wait. I have not read it yet. So.
I'll send you a copy. So
I'll
thank you. In the mail too. Yeah, my pleasure.
Because I just think we all need things like that. And I am going to make sure that my grandma up in heaven is reading over my shoulders, because I'm sure that would be.
I feel it.
You know, the one thing that, I'm trying to figure out how your work and my work intersect. And, before I talk with people on these edgy talks, I think really hard about sort of what you've done in your life and all that you've accomplished. And I didn't.
You as well. Hello. I mean.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you. And I actually didn't know the cancer survivor piece. So that's another piece of amazing strength that, I have a couple of friends who are going through cancer treatment right now. And the bouncing back from that is in and of itself an amazing feat. But I think where you and I actually converge in a really interesting way is everything that you say is basically saying being true to your genetics. Give me a second and I'll tell you why. Because we can't do anything about the body shape that we were given when the sperm and the egg came together and shuffled up those genes and gave us our bucket full of genes.
Seriously.
And that's your message, right? It's like, be true to your genetics. And you have a right to feel good no matter what genetic cards you're dealt, and be proud of yourself.
And if you're not feeling good, ask yourself, I don't mean to say that our bodies are dogs, but I'm just going to say, have you walked your dog today?
Yeah.
Have you nourished your soul with time alone and peace and connection to something bigger than you, whatever that may be?
Yeah.
Are you talking kindly to yourself when you walk by a mirror? Are you talking kindly to others or about others?
Yeah.
Are you nourishing your body with foods that make you go, when you eat it, Or are you not mindful and just either not bringing food into the system to nourish it, or mindlessly putting so much in that it's just it's maybe dulling things?
Yeah.
All these questions help us align with our genetics so that our genetics can rise and be dominant and not being stilted and shut down and thinking, believing. And I think a lot of money is being made off of us denying our genetics.
Oh, yes.
Right? So there's a huge industry for us to not have faith or to trust who we are.
Right. Yes.
And when we realize that the money that we earn, when we pay for something or when we pay for something and swipe or do whatever we do quickly here,
right,
that we support every single CEO that tries to, if we're support any business that doesn't lift us up. Right. We have to really become our own little, reporters and just scratch a little bit beyond the surface and see if these products are toxic, if our bodies don't like them. I mean, a lot of people are walking around with food allergies and are really, really beating themselves up that over a weekend, if they're eating pizza, their jeans don't fit.
Right.
And I'm like, you might want to look into gluten. You just might, or dairy,
or salt.
But not make it a diet, or salt, but your body will never, ever, 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 ever lie, ever. It's your best friend.
Right.
And that's where a lot of my work right now, when I lecture, when I talk, I'm being drawn by, probably by my own body, to say, please share how you love me.
Tell me more.
How am I your best friend?
Mhm.
How is it that you're communicating what I'm feeling? There's a whole world there that we're just not connecting to because it's too powerful.
Mm.
It's
Ooh,
very powerful.
there's another whole edgy talk in that. The other thing we don't do is show gratitude. We don't thank our body enough. My mom said something the other day. She had gone out and taken a long walk, and she came back and she said, I was looking at my feet. And I was like, all right, I'm going with you, Mom, not a problem. But she loves taking walks. And she said, I wonder how many miles my feet have taken me on walks. And she said, I was just really grateful to my feet for taking me on all those walks. And I was like, yes, Mom, that's exactly what we need to do. And, we're so quick to shame our own bodies or
Oh,
moan about a part or say, even when I say like, my feet are gross because I was a skater my whole life, it's like, yeah, but my feet let me skate and I'm really
hop
grateful
and
to them.
fly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, another piece we have to do is thank our bodies for what they've done for us.
No matter what we say to our bodies, no matter how badly we talk to them, I try to I try to do this this is a lifelong journey, with my own self-discovery, is the first and most intimate relationship that I have. Forget about a husband or a boyfriend or a really close girlfriend. It's my body and I.
Yeah.
And when I could really truly listen and stop first before I quickly do something, or because my body will tell me that turn there is dangerous.
Right.
That turn there is good. This person that you're speaking to really wants the best for you. I was like, wow, this is the best kept secret than sliced bread. I mean, we know that a woman's intuition or a person's intuition is there, but it's truly, you get physical feelings about things. And when if you're not supposed to get in the car, I don't know how, but your body sometimes gives you this self-doubt, like, don't go now,
Right.
just wait a second.
Yeah.
You got to listen to that. That's like actually saved my life once, where I learned very quickly when I was living in LA. I had the strangest sensation come over me, and it was an unusual feeling. And I had to sit back down on a couch and I go, what is this? But I'm not going to go against it because it's just so unusual. It was a very odd feeling. And that taught me that my body was talking to me. And when I got on the highway, I immediately got this feeling to go quickly onto the left side. And the moment that I got to the farthest left side where you go quickly, an accident took place of a flatbed truck, and it went and turned and turned and turned and turned. And it really left an impact on me on
Listening.
listen. It's telling you something, wherever that comes from. I don't know, but I'm not going to doubt it.
Right.
At least, I mean, and the times that you do, ooh, it's a tough lesson.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
tough.
No, I think that's a super important. I mean, that's what we do in therapy too. We teach people to listen to their bodies,
Right.
because so many people have sort of distanced themselves from their own signals. And it's trying to get them back in tune to those signals again so that they can detect them, so that they can pay attention and listen. So
When we start eating and cooking our own food and getting really close to the earth with very, very few ingredients in food, and having our water be very, very fresh, and taking ourselves out like a dog for a walk, not killing ourselves in the gym, but a walk in nature. If we can add those three, and sleep, get good sleep.
Yes.
I think a lot of people's anxieties can get to a place where it's a little bit less than, and we're not so at the beck and call of what others want us to be, and us not having the kind of nutrients and the minerals and all the things that help our brain fire correctly. I mean, it's a simplistic way of looking at things, but I think there's so much anxiety and take this pill and that pill, and
Yeah.
sometimes we need it. I understand,
Right.
but it's just going in so many places and eating stuff that's quick and fast that isn't really food
Right.
and not satisfying yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
your body knows when it's not getting what it
Yeah.
wants.
Yeah.
Don't you
And
think?
yeah, I actually do. And
Yeah.
I'm actually wondering if that might be something that comes out of COVID that isn't horrible. And that is that, more of us are cooking at home and more of us are, not necessarily just getting fast to go foods all the time.
That's
So there
right.
might be a little bit of a very one small, there might be two good things that come out of this. That's one of them. The other one is being able to do telehealth and reach people in remote areas. And I think those are hopefully things that will get us closer and help more people.
I think people are walking also a lot more
Yeah,
than
that's true too. Yeah,
ever
yeah.
before. Yeah,
I
yeah,
see that in my neighborhood. There's a lot of people walking their own dog. So to use your language, making, their own personal dog. Yeah.
yeah.
So we're getting close to the end, but we've talked about a bunch of different topics and sort of skimmed the surface of them. But is there anything else that you just want to make sure that you say to people who are listening to tuning into the EDGI Talk today?
So just to tie in the work that you're doing, Cindy, if I were to communicate in reflection with the work that you're doing with genetics, what is it that you would like to, I really would like to hear, if there's one thing that we could practice or one thing that we could be mindful of, what could I help amplify that message?
Right. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about EDGI, because it is the largest global genetic study of eating disorders ever to take place. And it follows on the heels of a study that we did called ANGI, which is the Anorexia Nervosa Genetics Initiative,
Yeah.
where we actually discovered that there are not only psychiatric components to anorexia, but also metabolic components to anorexia. And we've been focusing on the psychiatric for so long, and we don't do a great job treating this illness.
Mm.
And that might be because
Very
we
hard.
haven't been paying attention to the metabolic piece.
Mm.
And so, I mean, and we've got no medications that work for anorexia. There's not a single FDA-approved medication for anorexia. So, what this research is going to go toward is understanding the biology, understanding how anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating disorder, how they're the same biologically, but also how they're different biologically.
Right.
And then pointing toward interventions, medications that actually address the underlying biology.
Mm-hmm.
Because, part of it is listening to our internal signals are so important. But if there's something biologically wrong with your internal signals,
Right. Or blocked.
regulate that, or blocked. Exactly.
Right.
And we need to find that out, and that's where we're going. And so, we need people. We need people of all shapes and sizes, all ancestries, people who've had an eating disorder at any time in their life. Your genes don't change.
Right.
So if you had it 40 years ago, you can still go up to our website. It's just edgi.org, edgi.org, and, sign up. That's it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If someone has a deficiency in their intake of energy.
Yeah.
Okay, getting really basic.
Yeah.
If there could be an increase of calcium or an increase of manganese or increase of zinc or whatever it might be that might be missing, is this also being included in the work that you're doing if someone is deficient and you learn, oh, well, when somebody has bulimia, anorexia, or any associated disorder, and you start really finding out that they're missing this, there could be that type of work as well.
There can be. And so in the genetic studies, we might, for example, discover genes that suggest that maybe you don't utilize those nutrients well enough, which could lead to a deficiency. So you might need a supplement. So that's one possibility. But we have other studies going on that are looking at that too. EDGI isn't the only work that we're doing. We're doing a lot of biomarker studies. We just finished a study in Sweden where we got detailed food records on people that have bulimia to really look at their nutrient intake. But, you know, I think the biggest thing that we've seen is that negative energy balance. So when people are expending more energy than they're consuming, is a high risk state for people who
Yes.
have
Yes.
genetic predispositions for anorexia. And even if you've had it years ago, you still should stay away from negative energy balance, because it's a slippery slope down that hill to anorexia.
Over exercise,
Yep,
over, you know, just going too many days without energy. And
exactly.
yeah, I thank you. I thank you for the work that you're doing with you and your team. It's such important work.
Thank you, Emmy. Let's give a little plug for your websites as well.
Oh, okay.
So you are?
I am emmywellness.com, and I look forward to hearing from anybody that would like to get into coaching. I am an executive wellness coach, an executive leadership coach, and I love being able to help people get from point A over to Z in their life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It has been wonderful to have you here.
Oh.
You also have, what's your social media handle?
My social media handle, so my modeling and supermodel stuff is Supermodel Emme, EMME. So you can go onto Instagram there. And then for Instagram for the Emme Wellness, it's emme.wellness. And I have a Facebook group, Wellness Emme. So you can find me there.
We will put these all on the language when we're live on Facebook, and follow us at EDGI Study on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. Emme, I'm so glad after 3 decades of us being in this field, we finally got to talk with each other. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Cindy. I so appreciate the opportunity.